then I will do this. Because we are not looking at the metric side, we're just going to look at this side, I think, today. What is, by the way, the struggle is real. I'll just leave it like this. How's that? Okay, the issue and the problem we have is that with the way we measure things in our standard thing is that what? Anybody? Why this is just archaic? Because we have to deal with what everybody hates in the word of fractions. And here's the gist with the fractions. You won't be able to write this down because you don't have an exploded inch on your thing here. If you look at between 0 and 1, we've cut an inch into how many equal pieces? How many segments are there between 0 and 1? Can you count them? 1, 2, 3, 4, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16. Here's what makes our little ruler situation a problem, okay? Each one of these is 1/16 of the way there. So this little line right here where it's 0, oh boy, is 0/16. We don't usually write down 0/16, but that's what it is. And then the first dot right here is what? 1/16, right? Yes, Mr. Hahn, that is absolutely right. But this is where we run into trouble. When you get to the second line there, which is this one here, that is 2/16. But nobody in the entire world will tell you to draw them a line that's 2/16 of an inch. Why? Because 2/16 can be more easily said as Zach Roth.
1/4.
Nope. Yeah, see, that's why we love to work with fractions. Johnny? 1/8, because if you divide them both by 2, you get 1/8. So you have to say 1/8 instead of 2/16. You are allowed to say 1/16 because you can't reduce it. And then right here is the 3/16, which is okay, you can say that because that can't be reduced. But then when you get to this next one right here, I'm running out of room, it is 4/16, but you're not allowed to say that. Nor are you allowed to say 2/8, which is what it'd be if you reduce it once, but you have to reduce it again and end up with 1/4. And so on and so on and so on, and that just is what makes, so for example, if I had a line that went out to here, and I asked you how long to measure that line, well, if you count out 16ths, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. It is 12/16. But if you put that on your paper, I'm going to mark it wrong because you have to put the most simplified form of 12/16, which is, Connor, 3/4. Now, to make matters worse, sometimes somebody will tell you to measure to the nearest 1/8 of an inch. Well, how do you know what the nearest 1/8 of an inch is? Well, you have to think. An inch only has how many eighths in it? You have the 1/8, the 2/8. See, if I told you to measure to the nearest 1/8 of an inch, you're already looking at me like I'm bonkers. How about that? Try that again. Let's say the line. It's more of a struggle than you know. Let's go. I'm gonna actually do a line. How's that? What color is it? Let's go red. And that's really thick. We don't want that. Let me try this. Ooh. If I asked you to measure that to the nearest 1/8 of an inch, what you have to remember is that, by the way, this is 16th, 8th, 16th, 8th. this is 2/8 of an inch, but I can't use 2/8 of an inch. Because an 1/8 of an inch line is also a 1/4 inch line. And you have to say, even though you're measuring to the nearest 1/8 of an inch, your answer can be in 1/4 inches. Because it is 1 and, what is that, 1 1/4 of an inch. Even though I'm measuring to the nearest 1/8. Because every 1/8 is, everything fits whatever's below it. For example, here, what if this was my line? Did you ever watch that show, What's My Line?
No.
Good.
No,
It's not
never
worth
heard of it.
It's not worth it. So here's your line. And I tell you to measure that to the nearest 1/16 of an inch. How long is that line? Please, people. Cassandra.
1 inch.
It is, and that's what it would be. Because an inch line, an inch mark is also a 1/16 inch mark. What 1/16 is it? 1 inch is how many 16ths? So? 16/16. So yeah, here. Measuring to the nearest 1/8, it's that. Measuring to the nearest whatever, it's that there. Maybe we should look at one in your book and maybe that would help you out here. By the way, when they say nearest 1/16 of an inch, anything could be your answer. Because 1/16 is the smallest that makes anything your answer. You could have 3/4 in the measuring, you could have 1/4, 1/8, 3/8, 5/8, whatever it is. So if you look in your book, open to page 90. Look at page 90. Letter E. It says to measure that line segment to the nearest 1/16 of an inch. Please make sure you put your ruler that this line is where you put your ruler. It's not the edge of your ruler, but it's right on that line. How many 1/16ths is letter line E? How many 1/16ths is line E? And again, you get a plus or minus on this, by the way. I'll give you a 1/16 of an inch either way. You could be a 1/16 of an inch longer than they say and a 1/16 of an inch shorter than you say. But there's super extra bonus if you get exactly what they say. Letter E is how many 1/16ths of an inch, Lauren?
13/16.
That is exactly what I have there. Now some of you, if your rulers were off, or you didn't measure, but everybody should be pretty close. So it goes out to here. Some of you, I would have given you 3/4, or I would have given you 7/8, because those are the next two higher or lower than that. Well, you see, back when I was a kid, and I was helping my dad work on a car, when you take out bolts, you ever seen a bolt? The head of a bolt looks a little like this. It's a hexagonal shape, is it not? Pretty nice looking bolt there. That's from my drafting days.
Gorgeous.
And you got this little thing that comes down like this, and it's got little swirlies.
That's beautiful.
And he had this bolt head, and I was the guy that always ran and got him the tool that he wanted for it. And he said, oh, I grabbed this 1/2 inch wrench, but that was too small. He says, I need the next size bigger than 1/2 of an inch. Well, what would be the next size bigger than 1/2 of an inch? And that's what makes it hard. The next size bigger than 1/2 inch wrench was, Zach?
9/16.
9/16. Yeah, and that would be the thing. And then I'd go get the 9/16 and you go, that one's still too small. Give me the next size bigger. What would be the next size bigger than the 9/16? Lauren?
10/16.
Yeah, there's no such thing as 10/16, Lauren.
5/8.
Yeah, that'd be the 5/8. So, whereas here, let me give you a case in point. Now bolts actually come in the metric system. If by some chance you were helping your father and he was working on something like that, and you had a 9mm bolt, and he went and you got a 9mm wrench and he said that's too small, what's the next biggest size? Don't think too hard because it's 10 millimeters. What would be the next size bigger than that? 11 millimeters. There's no fractions. I'm adding a 16th of an inch. Nobody gets it. You had to be there, people. You had to walk in those shoes. All right, measure letter F. Measure letter F, would you please? Make sure you get the whole inches in there too. Don't just tell me the fractions, because there are X amount of inches there. Clausing? Wow, 2 1/4. I'm impressed with your measuramental ability. And letter G? Not letter G, but letter G. Letter G. Chase?
3 1/4.
I would give you 3 1/4, although that's not what my book actually has. It is 1/16 off from what my book has. Sittler?
3 inches 60.
2/16. There's no such thing.
3 2.
Huh?
3 and 1/8.
That's not what my book has. You have to split the difference between what you and Chase said. You, by the way, both are an 1/8 of an inch off. Aaron? What comes exactly between 1/8 and a quarter?
3 and 3/16.
Yeah, 3 3/16 is what I have, but I would have to give you one smaller, one bigger, and that would be the way it is. So when you get old and you take over the United States government, will you please talk to them and try to get our measurement, why we use inches anymore? It's just terrible, terrible. In track, do you run the 440 anymore? Do you run in yards? No, you run the 400 meter. Although you do still run them, they still call it a mile, right? It should be the 1600 meter, which wouldn't be a mile, but.
They call it 1600.
The two?
They call it 1600.